Hello and welcome to the SimTech podcast. I'm your host Craig, and in this show we will deep dive into the world of clinical simulation. Whether you're a seasoned simulation technician, a healthcare educator, or just curious about the tools and tech shaping the future of healthcare training, you're in the right place. In today's episode, I sit down with Martin from Laerdal. Martin shares his incredible journey to working at one of the most influential companies in healthcare simulation, his thoughts on Laerdal's range of manikins, and the role they play in advanced, realistic and effective simulation training. We also chat about the broader impact of simulation on healthcare education and how it continues to evolve. So grab a coffee, settle in, and let's dive into the conversation with Martin from Laerdal. Hello and welcome to another episode at the SimTech podcast. Today we're going to be getting to know one of our suppliers, and we have Martin. Hello, Martin.
Morning, Craig. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. You have a nice Christmas?
Yeah, thanks. Hope you did too.
Yeah, how's the weather?
Baltic, I think, would be the best way to describe it. And to get, to use the Scottish one, even more Baltic, it's to get to like -7, -8 for us in the next couple of days. So
Wow. So
woolly,
whereabouts are
woolly
you?
hats and gloves. Just outside Glasgow, Paisley. So fairly central belt, but yeah, not as bad as Aberdeenshire and places like that. They're going to get -20.
Much snow or just freezing?
We've had about 3 flakes all Christmas.
Yeah. Well, we're in that horrible phase where, the snow's starting to melt, but then it's just completely frozen over, made all
Oh,
like
that's
old
going to be
school car
unpleasantly
parks. And
underfoot.
yeah, it's horrific at the moment, especially in the car park area, where you get a little bit of grit, but it's not really doing anything. All right, Mike. So we've brought you on today to, get to know yourself and where you work. For those people that don't know you. So do you want to introduce yourself? Give us a little bit of a corporate introduction.
Yeah, okay. Corporate introduction is I'm Martin Quinn. I work for Laerdal, covering Scotland, Carlisle, and the northeast of England. Job title is regional manager. So that encompasses anything from sales type things in terms of demonstrations, in terms of doing quotes, booking appointments to see you guys, through to troubleshooting, problem solving, and just general all round discussions about what you guys do and how we can possibly fit in with that to make your life better, and the training better that you guys run.
And you say that you cover most of the northeast of England, and did you say the predominantly Scotland area? Does that mean that there's other
All
people
of
that cover?
Scotland, and because en route I pretty much have to come through Carlisle. I do Carlisle and that kind of area, and then I come over and I kind of start anywhere from Newcastle, or I suppose Ashington, all the way down as far as Middlesbrough. Yorkshire is not my territory, so I finish sort of like down your neck of the woods,
Yeah.
Middlesbrough, that kind of area.
And how many other counterparts do you have who cover like certain areas?
There should be 7 of us. In terms of my role, in terms of the other salespeople, there are a few more doing specialist products like the SIM capture system and also the RQI system. But in terms of general mannequin sales, resource departments, simulation departments, there's 7 of us UK wide.
Okay, and how long have you worked there?
I am there 10 years last October. So
Wow.
quite some considerable time. Longest serving member of the sales team, in terms of actually longest serving member of the sales team, and also oldest member of the sales team. So I
Uh,
never used to be, but sadly that has come on to me now.
it sneaks up on you, doesn't it? It really does. And what did you do before you worked there?
My history is did physics at university, got an honours degree in that from Glasgow. Ended up 3 days after I finished my finals, so finished, or 3 or 4 days, finished on the Thursday, and on the Monday started a job in sales, selling packaging materials, tapes, that kind of thing. So into big business like NEC, or into little guys that were, mending benches for school gym halls. And after about 10 months of that, decided that was paying some bills, but not particularly stimulating, so went into pharmaceutical sales. and that was 1996. And through various different companies, stayed there till 2007, and then went into capital equipment sales into the NHS. And then, as I said, joined Laerdal 2014, October, and have been there ever since.
Wow. I mean, how did you find coming into this kind of simulation world from, generally a non-medical background?
I was, I suppose, slightly lucky in that my previous role to Laerdal was with a company called Cardiac Services, and we did some of the Laerdal lower end QCPR mannequins.
Okay.
And we also the main sort of focus was like ECG machines, defibs, fetal monitoring, and so therefore I was dealing with a combination of technical people that like medical physics, but also dealing with clinicians who would be using end product, and also managed to get a flavour of what Laerdal was like from primarily the resus departments, I guess, and also I guess the EBME guys because of the suction units, because they had a huge amount to do with that. So although I'm not clinical and it was a bit of a jump, I knew a lot of the customers at a resus level when I joined, so it was slightly smoother integration than just kind of going straight from selling ambulance trolleys straight into, wow, you're seeing guys that are running 30-minute simulations 6 times a day sort of thing.
Yeah, like you say, sometimes I take it for granted, for some techs come from a technical background, not a medical background. So sometimes they come in and you just start talking to them and they look at you with like glazed over eyes when you use maybe clinical jargon. And, we just sometimes take it for granted. How do you find a non-medical coming in and talking to doctors and nurses? Do you sometimes just be like, what are they talking about kind of thing?
I suppose because we tend to work in specific fields that we, and when we're doing demonstrations, we know why we're going to be there with particular kind of target groups, I suppose, or customer groups. So yeah, you get used to it and you get to know terminology. However, there are some times where you just have to admit, I don't know what that means. What is it you're trying to get to? And then you try and work out. And one thing I have learned is don't answer if you don't know. Always go and ask the question of somebody else that does know, or try and get the right answer. And we have various different, as you guys have met, educators that are clinical, so they're ex-paramedics, they're ex-nurses, midwives, etc. So they are the go-to if I don't know the technical answer, if you like.
Yeah. One thing I've been wondering is what was can you remember what your interview for Laerdal was like?
Oh yes, vividly.
Yeah. What kind of stuff was on
Most people normally go and get interviewed by their line manager to be, and then maybe somebody else, say from HR or whatever. I get interviewed by the European sales director and John Laerdal, who is kind of heir to the throne sort of thing.
there? Wow.
And it lasted 2.5 hours in a hotel outside Edinburgh.
Wow, that sounds like a
So
bit of a
yes,
thrash.
it wasn't your general, do you have any questions for us, or kind of give us an example of. It was a very different interview. Then my second interview, with finally the job was confirmed, was with my then to be line manager, etc., which was a much more kind of normal affair.
Yeah. Wow, that's it must be quite daunting actually to, having Mr. Laerdal there himself.
Yeah, he was managing director in the UK at that point, and Andrew Smith was his boss for the whole of Europe. So yeah, I didn't exactly go in at a relatively low level, and obviously because the Laerdal family still own the business, it's it means a lot to them.
Mm.
And it's more than just selling product. They have all the mission statements about how we're going to try and work alongside people to make, save a million lives by, 2030 and things like that. So it's not just a job to them. So
Yeah.
it puts a bit of added pressure on, I think it'd be fair to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually their name, isn't it, and their legacy, and especially if it's been in their family for years, they're going to have a certain amount of pride about it,
Oh,
especially if you're
absolutely.
representing them. And what kind of training did you get when you were first successful?
So you get a sort of level of onboarding. I was fortunate that the guy I was replacing was actually being promoted to a different role, kind of globally. So I got a lot of time with Ray, Some of the guys will remember Ray Moffat, and he kind of introduced me to a lot of customers, but also showed me a lot of the products and how things, how you use them, how you update them, etc., etc. And then we had days at the office where, you would have people come in and would train you on how, how the products worked and how you do this and how you do that. So it was a mixture of kind of face to face and a mixture of talking to people down the phone trying to get help, but also a kind of learning on the job. So there would be days where you'd have to take a mannequin out, build it all up, and then sit there and play with it and work with it to work out how that worked and how you changed that and what did that mean and where were all the pulses and stuff. So it was a mixture, but it kind of gave you a broad grounding in terms of, because yes, demonstrating and showing products to people is really important, but a huge aspect of this job is the human aspect, because there is that old cliche of people buy from people. So you might be technically the best person to show them how to intubate SimMan 3G Plus, but if they don't like you as a human being and you're not helpful and you're not, administratively on the ball for them, you're going to struggle in comparison to somebody who's maybe not quite as gifted at that, but is a people person and is there as a customer kind of representative for them.
Yeah, I've actually seen it lately on a demo that didn't go too well. You want to leave the demo feeling, actually, I trust in this company. I feel like they would have my back if something went wrong. And if you don't feel that, it don't matter how good the mannequin is, the team just ain't going to buy into it.
Yeah, no, I agree totally. And we have this discussion all the time that one of the things that we view it is that we want to, obviously we're a sales organization, so we want to sell products. However, we want to sell them appropriately and that mean that they fit your needs. And the needs need to be met today, tomorrow, and maybe 6 months from now, 3 years from now. And so we need you to have confidence in us that, one, we're here for the long haul, which clearly we are because we've just celebrated our 40th birthday in the UK, but also that you trust that if you have a problem or you want more help, that I and the company will be able to help you. And I think sometimes if, a demo doesn't go well and you can't resolve it on the day, it doesn't instill a great deal of confidence that if this is what's meant to be the Rolls Royce show doesn't happen, it probably dents the team's ability to go, I trust that if I phone them at Friday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon because we're running, say, prompt and something isn't working, it would dent your confidence that you would get a response that means the course can continue at that point.
Yeah, I mean, you said it yourself there. Is actually you're selling quite big ticket items, really, aren't you? They are quite expensive. So to go in there and not have those kind of interpersonal skills with people, it could look quite negative.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Somebody once told me that people don't like to be sold to; they like to make an informed decision. So in some ways, the best demonstration of a product is when somebody takes over from you and starts doing it themselves with your guidance to say, yes, it can do that, no, it can. And therefore, at that point, you need to trust them, and they clearly trust you that you'll be able to guide them. But also, they need to know that they're making a decision based on what they believe, but also that they trust you, that you're telling the truth, and that you will be able to back up. Because as you say, it's not a 50 quid jumper out of Next or whatever. It's it's a big ticket item that is involved and is complex and will need to be looked after, and also will need you guys to know that if something goes wrong, we can help out, or if you want, and also we want you to come back, because it's not just a case of you buy that, your service could expand. You get a bigger sim suite. You decide to run more courses. So we don't want, our aim isn't just to sell it once and then that's it. We want you to come back for, as we develop more products into new areas potentially, or just more of the same.
Yeah, there's a little bit of loyalty there, isn't there? It's a two-way street. And I know our centre here is a Laerdal centre. We've looked, it's not as if we haven't looked at other companies and had demos from other companies, but we've always thought, Laerdal have always been our standard of how we set our centre. You spoke there about when things go wrong. You've obviously worked at Laerdal for 10 years at least. You must have had some demos that have gone slightly array. How do you kind of manage that kind of situation?
I think, the one where recently with you guys, it was a case of had to admit up front that it was not a production model, so therefore you manage expectation at the start. That's one way of doing it. The other way is if it does go wrong and it is a full production model, you just have to hold your hands up and say, I don't know why it's doing this. You do your best, go and grab a coffee. I'll try and rectify this. In reality, that shouldn't happen very often because we should always take the day before to build it and make sure everything works. But you can never be absolutely certain that everything is going to work in the day. So I think you just have to hold your hands up and admit and try and make the best of the time that you've got, and then say, if you're interested and you think it might be suitable, we'll go away and work out why, and then we'll come back. Some of them are self-inflicted. I once remember doing a sim mum demo about 8 years ago or 7 years ago and forgot to bring the automatic delivery module, which kind of, when they want to see that, kind of negates the benefit of how you could show that. So sometimes, I learned from that very quickly, that make sure everything is in the car and everything is correct. And as I said, try the day before to build it all up in the house, which sometimes scares the wife when she comes in and sees some birthing simulator lying on the floor. But it's, you just have, the good thing is, I would say the vast majority of customers, no matter what product they use, have been there and they've switched the mannequin on for a simulation and it's just not wanted to play that day. For whatever reason, it's just not going to work as it should, be it any of our competitors or ours. So I think that most customers appreciate that you get the odd one where it doesn't happen.
Yeah, I think we've, like, especially from my end, we've all been there where things don't work. But again, it comes back to the point that you made, is that actually, if you've built up this, knowledge, not so much knowledge, but this, we've seen you as a human, and you've got to meet us, and if you feel comfortable with us and we feel comfortable with you, you can say, look, guys, it's just not working for whatever reason, rather than it being this massively awkward situation, where you don't know what to do, we don't know what to do. I think
absolutely. And that ultimately, that it disappoints more the more you know people from our end, because I don't want to let guys that I've known for 10 years down. I don't want to let anybody down, but it feels almost worse. But also, you guys are understanding then, because that's not how it tends to be and how we operate and things like that, or how I operate or any of my colleagues. So it kind of changes it a little bit, because you're maybe a little bit more forgiving or understanding. Whereas I would imagine the worst thing you can have is you go in for your first or your second ever demo with a brand new customer in a new company, and the wheels fall off, and it does, that old, you only get one chance to make a first impression, that kind of thing. It's not ideal when everything goes wrong as soon as you walk in the door.
Well, you must have, like you said, I've seen you come with people that might be undergoing training and doing their first kind of demos. What kind of advice do you give them when they're doing like those kind of demos?
I always think that have a logical plan set in your mind. That I think that the way I do it, and there is no right or wrong way of doing it, I guess, is that you try and ask questions of people to say, how are you going to be using it? What do you think? Now, you should probably have an idea of that in the background, but then you want to try and fit what the mannequin can do to where your training needs to be. But you want to run through a kind of almost like a very generic top to toe of, it's got a fully intubatable airway, it's got light reactive pupils, and you run down and you show them, what the functionality is and where the pulses are and what you can do. But then, as I said, the best demos tend to be when somebody kind of elbows you in the ribs and says, can I have a go? And then with your guidance, they'll say to you, can you change that on the computer? And you change that on the computer and they see that. And at that point, in my head, you guys are then thinking, oh, this is good. This could do that. Does, are the lung sounds realistic?
Yeah, I mean,
it's that sort of thing.
stops it becoming really formal then, doesn't it? It becomes almost informal where, the ice has been broken. You now know what our objectives or agenda is, and you know what we want. So you're able to maybe streamline your...
Yeah, exactly. Because, it's a bit like when you're discussing what product suits. So you might want an adult mannequin, and I'll try and get to the bottom of what do you want, but our website allows you to compare. And therefore, I always think that's good that you then are fully versed on the mannequin that we think, say that a slightly more expensive one, a slightly less expensive one, that allows you to then go and work out what you think you need and what functionality is important. And that, within a demo, that streamlining. If, say, for instance, light reactive pupils are totally irrelevant to you, almost forget them, mention it happens, but you're then not going to get your phone out and start showing it because you're not interested in that. Whereas if you're interested in being able to do a BP measurement on the arm, that's far more important. And you guys want to hear that, see and work out, is that realistic? Does it work? Will the students, the doctors, the nurses or whatever be able to take that relatively straightforwardly in a manner that is, realistic to real life?
Do you have any favourite mannequins? What's your favourite?
Funnily enough, I've always had a kind of soft spot for Sim Baby, the new one, because possibly because it's the easiest one to carry in, because you just literally have one wheeled case, and it doesn't wreck your back getting out of the car. The other ones, that the one that I've really enjoyed recently was the one that we showed you, Mama Ann.
Yeah.
Because the response when people have seen it has been really positive, and it's always nice to show somebody something where they go, yeah, I like that, that's good. And the other one was, I did a critical care demo recently, and literally that was, after 5 minutes, I was elbowed out the way and they'd connected it up to their ventilator and it was intubated and they were playing with the software, and I was literally just standing there drinking a cup of coffee. And it's always nice when people go, no, this is good. Now, they may not buy it, they may not have the money, they may not decide that it's absolutely perfect for their needs. But when you get positive feedback that what the company have told you is actually kind of reflected in real life, I think that's always good. And those are the two that I've done recently where I've thought, we have developed something that is actually good.
Yeah, I've got to say, Mama Ann is probably one of my favourites at the moment, mainly because it's obviously very new and very shiny. I don't know, are we allowed to talk about it a little bit? I know it's...
yeah.
What really impressed me is it feels like Laerdal been listening to what everyone's been saying about sim mum, focusing on sim mum's negative things, going, I wish it did this, I wish this worked better, I wish this would. And it almost feels like you've been listening to what everyone said and put it into this new Mama Ann mannequin. Do you think that was on purpose? Have you been listening, or is it a pure fluke?
I know that one of the things now, it's as an example, there's another new product hopefully coming out this year that has been getting shown to a few UK customers, because they want to check that the functionality is right, even almost the appearance is right in terms of ear position, jaw position, nose position, because it's a totally different look to what we've done previously. So with
what
Mama Ann,
I know, are you allowed to say?
No.
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 Are you allowed to adult, child?
I couldn't possibly comment, but it's not very big. So it is one of those that I know with Mama Ann, they did like the classic focus group. They took demo models round or prototypes round and worked with various different organisations. Whether or not that was in the UK, it certainly wasn't any of my customers. And it's nice when we do that, because sometimes I think that guys in a lab or in a development room think they know what people want. And actually, sometimes you can actually make it too complex and it does way too much, and people just go, well, that's great, but we'll never use it. But with this, I do think they have gone to customer groups, but I also think they've probably gone to like what do you call it, like centres where, or like sometimes we'll go to the American Heart Foundation, American Heart Association, and say, what do you, or American College of Pediatrics or whoever, and say, you want to develop this, let's work together. So I do get the feeling with Mama Ann, they have certainly collaborated and listened to what people wanted. Sometimes the problem, the issue with those things is you might want something, but 10 other centres that we go to don't, and you might feel a bit let down because of that.
How can you keep everybody happy?
You can't. And the other thing is sometimes technologically, it's not always doable. And you'll have experienced it with any mannequin. Sometimes the pulse site isn't quite where you would necessarily have it in a human being, but that's because you've got to make the elbow bend, you've got to have electronics running or fluid lines running or whatever. So it's never going to be an exact representation. So within the boundaries of what is achievable, I think we do quite well. And I think with this one especially, the feedback has been, yeah, you really have listened.
Yeah, it is. It blew everyone away. Even as much as the price, we was expecting it to be more for some reason. I mean, the price isn't too dissimilar from normal mannequins. With this being cutting edge, a new mannequin, we were just expecting it to be so much more. How come the price is set at that?
That is way above my pay grade. It's based on, as far as I understand it, it's based on production costs and things like that. But there will also be an element of, how shall I put it, that there is no point in us launching Mama Ann at 3 times the price of everybody else's birthing simulator in the market, because no matter how good it is, it's not, people are not going to spend that much more on what is a relatively standard type of mannequin, if you like, now, because there's quite a lot of birthing simulators available. If you're talking something that's really specialized and really high end, and like I don't know, stuff for stents, say, or surgery or whatever, you can maybe get away with that because you're only going to sell a small number and they are really specialist. Whereas with this, there are other competitors out there that are good, and if we are so much more expensive, it would just make it impossible. And the last time I looked, universities and NHS in the UK weren't exactly flush with cash to spend extra amounts that they potentially can't justify just because it's a bit better.
There's going to be a few people that are interested in Mama Ann that is listening. When's the kind of the release date for Mama
Ann? As well, it is orderable at the moment, and I know that it's certainly being shipped in America, but they had a quite a big backlog of people buying it kind of like with a brand new house off plan. They heard about it, they wanted it. So we are anticipating being able to ship in Q1.
Okay.
Is what I'm being told.
What about demos? Are people able to get demos?
I haven't. We haven't heard if when our demo unit is coming in. It was hopefully going to be this quarter, so January, February, March. I haven't had any update in that, but fingers crossed, we should be able to get demos to people in the next sort of like 6 weeks.
Okay. You was at ASPE showing it off as well, weren't you? How was the feedback up at ASPE?
It was. It worked very hard for its living at ASPE. It was birthing kind of during the breaks every kind of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
The feedback generally was hugely positive. People were very impressed with the changes compared to Sim Mum, which is understandable because she was, relatively speaking, an elderly product by the time Mama Ann came out. But the general feedback was it was excellent, and we had listened to what the complaints about Sim Mum were, and we'd rectified those. So I think that the only negative from our point of view was at that point, one, you were kind of in the middle of people's financial years, so that budgets weren't necessarily there for it, and also because it was pre-production and we didn't have an exact timeline of when can you order? You can order because we had pricing for it, but there was no absolute guarantee when you could buy. But we were being told prior to Christmas that if you got orders in, we would be getting priority on shipment for Q1 because obviously NHS often require stuff to be in by 31st of March.
Yeah, it must have been very convenient for you having it in Edinburgh, just a little bit along the road.
Along the road, yeah, it was kind of handy because there were a lot of Scottish sim centres there,
Yeah,
but then there were a lot coming up from the northeast as well because it's kind of the ideal location for that. It was brilliant that we managed to get it, and it did take quite a lot of hard work behind the scenes to manage to get us to get there.
yeah.
But yeah, the feedback was absolutely excellent from. I wasn't doing the demo; it was a couple of the other guys, but everybody was absolutely delighted with what feedback we got.
Yeah, I mean, I love how simple it looks to use, and most of the non-technical faculty feel like they wouldn't have too much trouble, putting the baby in and pressing a few buttons and just watching it pop out. It just seems a lot user friendly compared to SimMum. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it's much more user friendly, and I think there's a lot of functionality that the clinical staff like, but I think from the tech point of view, as we discussed, like the bleed mat
Yeah.
and things like that, and the blood bag and things, means you can run back-to-back scenarios much more straightforwardly, much quicker, with less effort, and also, perhaps equally as importantly, get tidied up at the end of the day
Yeah,
in
and there's a
a
cost there,
far
isn't there?
more timely manner, shall we say.
Yeah, exactly. I like to say that, and being able to reuse the blood rather than that, just literally throwing it away because it's all over the floor or over mats and bedding, those kind of stuff. It's really useful. You spoke because you're doing demos a lot. How many demos a week do you do, or a month? Are you traveling around a lot?
Well, yeah, we're certainly travelling around a lot. You tend to find that demos are, how shall I put it, product specific in terms of, obviously at the moment we've launched a couple of new products, so people are very keen to see them if they didn't see them at ASPE or whatever. So
Yeah.
you'll tend to find there's a bit of an influx when people get wind that there's new products on, like Critical Care and Mama Ann. You'll also find that demos go up when budgets are coming to either be bidding going in or end of financial year. So universities, that tends to be midsummer. You guys, it tends to be kind of January, February. People are wanting to see demos to see if the product's appropriate for,
Yeah,
because
we always need it like next week.
yeah. Well, funnily enough, I'm heading down to you guys to Durham next week
Ah, it'll
to
be for
show a couple of
the
things off.
babies. Yeah.
But yeah, it can vary. You can do no demos in a week, no demos in a month, and then you can have 4 or 5 in the space of 3 weeks,
Mm.
just depending. The other thing is that obviously there are limited supplies of these. So if I get, say, Mama Ann when we get it, or I get Critical Care, I will make sort of email people that know and that are interested and say, look, I've actually got it because I'm doing a demo in Bishop Auckland. Do you want me to come and show you it in Sunderland? Do you want me to come and show you it in
Yeah.
Newcastle or whatever, Middlesbrough? Because it's about a 3-day process for it to be shipped, for me to get it, to check it, to demo it, to then ship it back. So if I get it, I try and block it out if I can, or do multiple over the course of 2 or 3 days. And you guys are very understanding that we don't live in a perfect world where I've got a big garage with every single mannequin all set up ready to rock. So, quite often you'll be able to shoehorn it in because, well, as we did, because ultimately, if you don't do that, you might not see it for another 6 weeks because, as I said at the start, there are 7 of us, 7 of me. So therefore, everybody's got the same demands on
Mm.
it. And especially with new products, we don't have multiple versions of it. So yeah, it varies, but there is a hell of a lot of travelling involved at times. I can be 2,000 miles a month,
Yeah.
business
Uh,
miles.
Something that strikes me is that when people are thinking about demos and oh, let's have a little look at we could do with seeing one of these kind of mannequins. People might not take into consideration how much effort and work you actually put in behind the scenes to come to a demo. Does it ever don't want to say annoy or bug you that a demo is not successful, because
No,
maybe they just wanted to view it and then maybe weren't being completely transparent.
well, we would, as an organisation, say that we should clarify, like why you're wanting the demo. Now, is it because it's an exciting new product and you want to see it, and we have a chat, and then you say, I just want to see it, and it's not desperate? Then, you work your diary and other people's diary round. That there may be somebody that's sitting there with the classic open checkbook and just needs to see it to order it. And they obviously will, unfortunately, take priority over somebody that just wants to have a look. But ultimately, you guys seeing it, even if it's just for a look, is hugely important, because some of the gestation periods for orders, particularly within the UK, can be. It took me 2.5 years to get a Harvey order in from one university, just because every year they bid for money, and every year they get told no, and then suddenly one year somebody said yes, you can have it. So, and that's part of our job, is not to lose sight of, or not to lose touch with customers, that just because you want to see something today but you don't get the funding, we need to keep in touch with you, because obviously that may change. But obviously, just common courtesy is that you're not just a kind of meal ticket to an order. You said that we're human, you're human as well. So keeping in touch, seeing how things are. You may have other Laerdal kit that you want advice on. So I never get annoyed if I don't get anything out of a demo, because not every, it's like people should then get annoyed out of every sales call that they don't get a sale, because it isn't like that. And not, to be honest, not every sales call is a call where you actually discuss selling anything. It can be about where you are, how you're doing, have you got any problems. It's not necessarily about when are you going to order next, or it shouldn't be. It's about how are things. Is there anything we can do out with you putting a purchase order in that will make your life better? So it might be software updates. If you guys are too busy to do that, we might be able to facilitate that kind of thing.
I mean, there's real value in a little bit of networking, isn't there? Coming down, meeting people. And I know last time you was here, you was getting pulled aside because someone else saw you. You're like, oh, can you come and have a look at these pads? These pads are broken. How do I fix these?
Yeah, and to be honest, one that's ideal for us, because we shouldn't just, I don't think, given how far I'm travelling, it's a 400-mile round trip, give or take, to you guys. It's not very practical to drive 400 miles just to see you and then drive away. It's better that whilst I'm in, somebody says, can you come and help with this? Or, oh, do you have 10 minutes? Because an extra 10 minutes or half an hour on that day is far better than having to spend another 8-hour round trip or another few nights away from home, relatively speaking, quite close to it. So yeah. I would rather people, if they knew I was in the building, tried to grab me and, use me while I'm there, rather than, I didn't want to bother you. And then you get the phone call the day later when you're back home saying, can you come down? It's that to me is absolutely, that's the way it should be. That when we are there, we get, you get, or the trust or the university get access to us the full time we're on site.
Martin, that's probably us oversubscribed on our time, and I know you're not very well today, so we don't want to drag this on too long. As I can see you sniffling in the background, drinking is it a Lemsip?
No, it's just water to stop me sounding like Orville as my voice gets higher and drier.
If people want to get hold of you for whatever reason, what's the best way to contact you?
Anybody that our email addresses are just our names. So if you know the rep, it's just martin.quinn@laerdal.com. So it would be your own rep. There's always a website where you can go, kind of get more information. And that will come through to us as a sort of like an electronic system where it says Craig Digby requires information on or a price on, and we can then get in touch and you fill in your contact details. There's always a website. There is also, funnily enough, 1 Million Lives podcast that's available on streaming services that explains a bit of Laerdal in the background. But those are the and usual social media channels. X, I nearly called it the other name there, which would show my age, and Facebook. So they are the general routes. But ultimately, the other way of doing it is just Googling it and picking up the phone the old-fashioned way, actually
the
trying to speak.
old-fashioned way.
The old-fashioned way, and trying to speak to a human being at head office who should pass it on to the appropriate person.
Brill. Well, thank you for joining us today. Is there anything that you'd like to add before we sign off?
No, no. Thank you very much for inviting me, and it's been a new experience, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Brill. Well, thank you for your time, Martin, and I'm sure we'll catch up another time.
Thanks. Cheers, Craig. Bye.
And that wraps up another episode of the SimTech podcast. A big thank you to Martin from Laerdal for sharing his journey, insights into the world of manikins, and thoughts on the future of simulation in healthcare. I hope you found our conversation as inspiring and informative as I did. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe so you'll never miss a new one. You can also leave us a review. It really helps us grow and reach more listeners like you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next time on the SimTech podcast, where we continue to explore the tools, techniques, and the people that make simulation such a vital part of healthcare education.